Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Islamophobia Watch. George here, and today I'd like to talk about something super important. And I wish more people really wrap their mind around this, because while we're busy making theological arguments, and some people get into this whole apologetics and theology, and there's so many different angles that you can look into this. But the one important issue that needs to be looked at, in fact, maybe the only important position that we all need to develop really, really well, is the fact that Islam is not a religion. When I heard Geert Wilders from the Netherlands talk about this some 20 years ago, I have to say that even though I already had a huge problem with Islam, I already knew that Islam will be a huge problem, not because of just 9/11, but everything that followed after 9/11. And it just shook me. And I thought, wow, this is kind of a bold statement. Why is he saying that? From what angle is he coming from? And so I began to really look at this, because I sensed that this is huge. And it's the resistance to this truth and this fact that has gotten us in so much trouble. You see, global jihad has figured out something really important. They figured out that religious liberty is a big deal in the West. Freedom of speech is a big deal in the West. And they figured out that if they begin to preach sharia in our face, if they begin to openly declare war and conflict, they'll have a problem. So instead, they camouflage themselves as yet another religious minority, which they are a minority, and they figured out, the crafty jihadis that they are, that we're going to use the religious liberties of the West so we can destroy religious liberty in the West. We're going to use freedom of speech so we can destroy freedom of speech. That is the mindset of a jihadi. They'll do anything in the name of jihad, right? But the other problem is not just the fact that jihadis do that. The problem is that we have an ignorant Western civilization that really doesn't care about religion too much. 70 years after the end of World War II, we have the West mostly postmodern and secular. People just don't care about these things. They really don't understand what Muslims are making a big deal about. So they say, you know what, let them have what they want. Let them just be, right? If they want to put burqas on, if they want to pray and roll out their mats and treat their women like doormats and whatever they want to do, right? They don't understand that Muslims' end goal is to impose sharia, which is nothing but Muslim tyranny. They call it Sharia law. It's not really a law, it's tyranny. What the ignorant people of the West don't understand is that Muslims have an end goal, and that end goal is to impose Sharia tyranny on all of us, on non-Muslims as well. As soon as non-Muslims, as soon as Americans or other Western people or people who are part of the free world realize that the end goal of Muslims really is to establish Sharia Islamic tyranny, things begin to change. The house of cards begins to fall. Now let's talk about Islam not being a religion. Why is this important? Because as soon as we make the case for Islam not being a religion, the house of cards that they've built falls apart. The Islamophobia propaganda falls apart. Okay? How do we know Islam is not a religion? We know this from history. We know that Islam conquered and basically defeated all of its enemies through the power of the sword. There was nothing about preaching a sermon. Islam never advanced throughout the world like Christianity. Christianity was mostly concerned with preaching and teaching. It was concerned with doctrine. And yes, Christian history is sprinkled with unfortunate instances of forced conversions, but by and large, Christianity mostly relies on its rhetoric. It relies on its preachings and doctrines and dogmatic convictions and system of life as espoused by Christian doctrine. For Islam, teaching is of secondary nature. Teaching is no teaching. Actually, it's propaganda from early on, memorization of Arabic verses that many Muslims don't even know what they mean. So it's memorize the Quran, and basically brainwash people into submission, which is what Islam means, submission, right? And then imprint on their psyche the idea that they must convert the rest of the world. They must subject the rest of the world to Islamic law or tyranny, because Islamic law and tyranny is paradise on earth, period. End of story. So basically Islam becomes a political system, and the end goal of this political system is the subjugation of other peoples and submitting them to Islamic tyranny. That is what Islam is. Now, history teaches this very clearly, but the problem is that no one teaches history today correctly in our schools, in our colleges, and most people don't know this. If history was taught correctly, then we would have no problem. People would know this from history, that Islam has succeeded because of the power of the sword, and so they'll realize that the agenda has never changed. So they'll be on the lookout. They will be careful. But that's not the case. So most Christians today, for example, in America, think of the mosque as just another church, the imam as another pastor, and that is not the case. Mosques are basically aggregators. They aggregate money, they aggregate jihadis, they train them, they recruit them. They are military bases for all purposes and intents. Why? Because Islam is a global network of terror, and the end goal is to crush other cultures and subjugate them to their utopian Islamic vision. Right? Now, what is the living proof? If history can't teach people today what Islam is about, what is the living proof of this? The living proof of Islam and what Islam are the ex-Muslims. Ex-Muslims are the living proof. Now, how women are treated, and if you've noticed, the logo of Islamophobia Watch is a woman that's dressed in burqa, which, half of the people in the Muslim world, women, are treated like half a person. So this is, in and of itself, is absolutely scandalous. It's absolutely shocking. But ex-Muslims are the other living proof. If Islam was a religion, if Islam wants to benefit from the protections of religious freedom in the United States under the United States Constitution, then Islam should behave like just another religion. And yet it doesn't. When Muslims decide to walk away from Islam, they get persecuted. They are afraid for their lives, because betraying Islam is like betraying your country. It's like betraying a political system, and you're subject to the death penalty. That is how Muslims are treated. No religion treats their apostates like this, except Islam. Islam is the number one perpetrator of murder in the name of their God. Always has been, always will be. There's no way around this. So even today, we have statistics that just about a quarter of all Americans who are raised as Muslims do not consider themselves Muslims anymore. But they don't say it. They don't talk about it. They're afraid to even declare that they're not Muslims anymore. Now, something is happening, and ex-Muslims are coming out strongly and declaring who they are, who they're not, right? That's the trend. The trend is for many Muslims or ex-Muslims to come out, so to say, come out of the closet, and to break free from that cult and from that system. But they're doing so at great cost. They're being kicked out of their families, many of them. They're subject to the death penalty as per the teachings of Islam. And they become the living proof that actually Islam is not a religion. Not only that, but our legislators are reluctant to condemn this inhumane treatment of people. Our legislators and our spiritual leaders continue to think of Islam as another type of religion. They continue to think of mosques as some kind of churches and imams as some kind of pastors. The deception is real. It's deep. It's thick. It's terrible. This has to end. This has to stop. Islam is not a religion. It's a political ideology for subjugation. And what it does is that enslaves people. It keeps them bondage to its own system and culture. And it uses them for its own agenda. And it has to be, all protections from Islam as a religion must be removed immediately. Islam is a political ideology, and the day we begin to realize this is the day we're going to become free to resist it and expose it for what it is. So Muslims will have to either give up their militant agenda and act like they're just a religion and have no problem when Muslims walk away, or they'll have to embrace the fact that they are indeed a political ideology, that they are a militant political ideology, and they must be treated as such, lose all protections as a religion, and basically be banned. Islam must be banned. The only Islam that could be allowed is if they make a statement of renouncing and denouncing every single form of violence contained in the Code of Islam. And if Muslims can do that, and they can reject the violence of Islam, imams can do that, then I guess they can have their own religion. But until then, we have no reason to believe that any of them have rejected violence, no matter what they say. That's what Islam does. Don't expect anytime soon Al-Azhar, the scholars, the Muslim scholars at Al-Azhar, to reject the teachings of Islam. Because this is, Al-Azhar in Egypt is where everything is happening. Al-Azhar is a Muslim educational institution. It's the most influential one around the world. And also it serves like a Supreme Court in the world of global Islam. So these scholars have never rejected the violence of Muhammad. In fact, there is a great book written by Professor Mark Gabriel, who used to teach at Al-Azhar in Egypt. And he was kicked out, and he had to flee to America for fear of his life, because he was teaching in his classes that Islam succeeded because of violence, which is true. At the time, he was a Muslim, and yet he ended up being persecuted, and then he became a Christian later on. But this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with something that's not a religion, but it presents itself as one. We're dealing with major, major deception. And this is more than anything else, this is an operation of deception. And the day America wakes up to the fact Islam is not a religion, because it's not acting like one, the day America understands that the power brokers of this evil system, the Muslim Brotherhood, the imams that benefit from that system and operated big money outside and inside of the United States, who are absolutely using and abusing our liberties to the nth degree. The day we wake up to all these truths, and the day we realize this thing is not a religion, but a militant political ideology, is the day all of our internal forces will begin to function again, and we will basically shut down this threat, and we'll shut down this political ideology. Just like in Germany today, fascism is outside of the bounds of law. You cannot be a Nazi or a fascist in Germany today. Same thing with communism. Communism is banned by the law in Eastern Europe, in most Eastern European countries. You cannot officially have a communist party in those countries. In the same way, Islam must be banned because it is not a religion, it's a political ideology. Drop me an email or leave your comments, however you get this. podcast on censored or uncensored media. This is going out on a number of platforms, so check out our website, Islamophobia.watch, and do get in touch if you'd like to be part of the conversation. Thank you.